Welcome to Artistic Adventures. Since we're on the pull-up topic, let's do a mini pull-up customization. What do you say? I found this doll on eBay and bought her for a reasonable price. And just wanted to show you how she looks before we do anything. This is the outfit that she came in, and her hair is like straw. It is so horrible. It's really straight and stiff, and has this little she has this little headband on, and then these kind of curled up bangs. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the hair, and it's just glued down. It's kind of got a like a little wig cap, so just really easily pull that off. It's not glued down too bad. So that's how she looks with no hair, and that's the little wig cap. That is how she came. And that's going to go in the trash because it's horrible. So, what I want to do is I'm going to take the head off. There's a little screw here. So, we're going to take the head apart and see what's inside. I've never looked at one of these or seen a video about one of these. And boy, was it hard to get that screw off. So if you got one of these and you're trying to unscrew it, you're going to need a little help. It's very, very tight, kind of like some of the Blythes that I've worked on. So I just kind of squeezed the head, and it popped open, and that's all that's holding it is that screw. So here's what the inside of the head looks like. So there's a little eye plaque thing in there with the two eyes, and you can see the little globs of the yellow glue that's around it, and it's a real hard glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a flat small screwdriver and try to pop that out. I think it will pop out pretty easily. So just to show you what the body looks like while we're taking dolls apart here. It looks a lot like the petite Blythe, although the boobs are a lot bigger. And I don't know why. It seems like it's almost like a child, so I'm not sure exactly why the boobs are so big. But I wanted to show you while I've got this out, what the petite Blythe looks like, just as comparison in case you are familiar with them. The bodies look very similar. I think that the doll is just a little tiny bit taller just because of the way the head is and the neck. But I think that the clothes will fit this doll. The arms look very similar. I think the petites are a little bit thinner. And the legs look pretty much the same, but there's how you can see the boobs are so much smaller. And that's interesting to me. I don't know why the boobs are so big. But anyway, I am going to try to dress her in a petite Blythe outfit that I have on hand. And I'm thinking that the clothes are going to fit, that they're going to be very similar. So we're going to put the body aside for now, and we're going to try to get this eye plaque out. I'm not really sure how the eyes are made, but I want to replace them, and I'm just going to stick the screwdriver underneath those globs of glue and use some leverage and pop them out. And I'm using a flathead screwdriver that I have. This little set has got all different kinds, and it pops out pretty easily. I have to say, it's not gooey. It's like a hard resin almost. Pops out pretty good. So I'm just going around the edges and making sure I get all of that popped out. And once I think I've got all of the glue out, I think the eye plate should come out fairly easily, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to stick a screwdriver under one of the edges and just pry it up, and I think it'll come out okay. Because I don't think I'm going to need it. So even if I damage it, I'm not that upset because I think I can put like regular BJD eyes in it. I'm just not sure what size, so we'll take a look at it. And once we get these out and see which kind fits. There, you see, that just popped right out, and I'm able to pull that out. And it's interesting, they're really flat. It's sort of like flattened eyes. And you can see where the eyelashes are glued in there. They're glued in behind, but that makes them sort of go down. And I want to actually glue them underneath the eyelid so that they'll stick up. I don't really like the way they're angled down because it kind of covers up the eyes. It makes them look shaded. So I'd like the eyes to look more open. So I'm just going to take, I tried using tweezers to pull the eyelashes out, and that didn't work so good. And then I had to go to my trusty hemostats, which will do anything. Now these are the eyes that came out of the Blythe. You can see the size versus these. They're smaller. Those are 8mm, the Blythe eyes, the petite Blythe eyes. And just to put them in, I just want to look and see how they look. They're not bad. I guess 8mm could work, but I think 10mm will work better and will look fuller in the eye itself because of the way those other eyes are made. They're kind of flattened out, so I think we're going to need a little bit bigger eye to fit in that hole and make it look somewhat realistic. So I actually happen to have some eyes that I had purchased previously. These are the 8mm, same size as the ones I put in the Petite Blythe I showed you that I had customized some time ago. These are 10mm. They're a little bit bigger, and I like the color too. They're sort of a nice teal or aqua color. So I'm going to try one of those into the eye socket and see how that works. So I'm really kind of slowed this video down. I hope you guys like it. Sometimes I get comments that the videos are too fast or you can't see what I'm doing. Sometimes I make it go fast over things that I feel are very repetitive, but we'll see how this goes. All right, so with that eye in, I think that looks a lot better. That sort of fills up the eye socket a lot better. And I like the color too, so I think those are the eyes that we'll use. So I'm going to put that eye back in the case so I don't lose it because those little things get lost very easily. So now I'm going to try getting rid of the eyelashes, and like I said, I tried the tweezers, but they just don't work that well, so I had to pull out my hemostat, which is what I used to get the eyelashes out of my other Blythe dolls. And if you don't have a pair, they come in handy for lots of different things. They're just really good, really good grippers. And I think I got these at a fishing supply place because they use these like to pull the hooks out of the fish's mouth sometimes. But they're really good grippers. You can get them at medical supplies too. They use these in surgeries and stuff. And so I pulled out the eyelashes. They were just glued back behind there. And now we've got the face plain at this point, and we can start working on it. And I'm not going to be using those eyes, so I'm just going to set those aside. And I'm going to put that little tiny screw in a place where I can find it because otherwise I won't be able to get the head back together. And I get rid of all the clumps of glue that I had popped everywhere. And the first step is to start sanding. Now I'm using this, it's a 3M, kind of a foam very fine grit sandpaper. I think it's about 1,000 or 1,500 grit. And basically you just want to sand off the entire surface of the face. This gets rid of all of the color. You can't use acetone on this hard plastic. It just sort of melts it and you'll ruin it. So to get rid of the color, you have to just sand it off. So I'm sanding around the eyes and the lips, the nose, everywhere. Now you see how pointy the nose is on this doll? Same way with Blythe dolls. Their noses are so pointy. It looks like a little rat or something. I don't know. Like some kind of weird creature. So the first thing I do a lot of times is I'll just sand down the nose just to get rid of that pointy look. She also had a really pointy chin, and I sanded that down some too. She didn't quite look so much like an elf. I didn't get all of the color out between the lips, but as I'm carving on it, I did manage to get it out finally. So what I use are X-Acto knives, different sizes, and you can use that to carve, like actually cut the material as well as scrape it. I'm not going to show you the whole process. It takes forever. It's really hard. And also I have to hold the thing really close to me so I can't film it very well. But I am going to show you kind of the areas that I worked on, what I wanted to do. Like I told you, I did blunt the nose and the chin with the sandpaper. And also I wanted to make the mouth a little bit wider than it is. So I just carved the lips a little bit wider. I carved above the lip there to kind of carve that down, and then around the nose to give the nose a little bit more definition. And so I just kind of carved around the edges, and the philtrum there, I carved that out to make that a little bit more realistic, and gave her some nostrils. And then here I carved up to make the bottom lip go a little bit deeper underneath the lip. And that's kind of just how I worked on it. So this is after I worked on it for quite a while. You can see I added the nostrils, the mouth's a little bit wider, and I put some indentions on either side of the mouth. So it's like just kind of smiling and making that go in, and carved around the nose some. So there's where I kind of carved that deeper. You can see, and then around the nose I carved, so that's defined a little bit more, and the nostrils and the philtrum there, that little divot that comes down from the nose over the cupid's bow. And you can see I blunted that nose by sanding down on it, and also I did take some of the point away from the chin. So that's a major portion of the work. And it just takes a while. And I'm not really crazy about working on these small dolls like the petites, but for the people that do, they end up looking, really cute because the plastic mold is kind of flat. And I'm using this matte medium to prepare the surface. I did actually take it and wash it I took a toothbrush and washed it with some detergent and got it nice and clean from where I'd been messing with it. And then now I'm just going to take the matte medium and put that down into very thin coats. Let it dry in between. You can do 2 or 3 coats. I find that these harder plastics accept the color much better than the softer plastic, like Monster High and those kind of dolls. But 2 coats on this face worked really well. And I did the back of the head too, because I am going to number it and sign it, because I'm going to be famous, I'm sure, and they'll find these dolls and then they'll want to know what number they were. Yeah, right. So I'm starting with some watercolor pencils. Just going to outline the lips here. And I did color in using the watercolor pencil also. And then later I came back in with a little darker color on a really thin brush to put in that crease between the lips. I tried doing it with a pencil, but it's so small, really didn't fit very well. I did get a little bit of the brown in. So I'm just making little marks on the lips up and down, and there at the corners as well, to give it the look of the creases that we have naturally in our lips. And the watercolor pencil went down really well. And I used that same red color down at the bottom of the eyes. It's not really visible from outside, but if you look down on it, you can see it, and that sort of looks like the inside of the lids. So the other things that I do is I use pastels, put a little bit of a blush on her cheeks, and I also use some darker colors to make some more definition, like around the nose here. I'm putting more of a brownish color to kind of shade the lower places on the face, and gives it just a little bit more realness and definition. And I shaded underneath the nose, a little bit under the bottom lip, shading with a sort of yellowish brown underneath the eyes. And if you make a mistake, I just use a wet brush and it comes right off. You can also use a white eraser, but for the pastels, sometimes that just spreads it, so I'll use just a wet brush that's not too wet, more just damp. And now I'm putting on some eyebrows with pastels, and then I go over that later with pencils to give it, sort of a look like hair of the eyebrows. But I like putting down that coat of pastel first to give it a nice thick look to it. And then I used a couple colors of brown, darker brown and lighter brown of the hair, just, the strokes for the hair to make it look more realistic. And you can use, other colors if you want. It's just what I did. There's a little groove there above the eye, and I'm just putting in a brown pencil in that groove, sort of like a fold of the eyelid is what that would be. And it was more of a orangey color on the doll before I did it, if I remember correctly. And then I put some black on the underneath side of the top of the eye opening. And then now I'm putting some pink as sort of a color of the skin more than it is, shadow. And I'm putting some blue on either side of the nose, where we tend to have that bluish color as a shadow, where the skin is really thin. And I'm sorry I've got it out of the frame here, working this close up. Sometimes I'm not watching the monitor because I get so excited about working on the doll. And I just sort of move out of the frame. So that's where we are so far right now. And what I'm doing there, that's how I clean the brush with from the pastel color that was previously on it. And now I'm taking a darker red and trying to put into that crease, and also some brown around the outside to shade the outside of the mouth where it goes in on either side, and also under the lip. And I got a little bit of that brown under there. I had to wipe that off with one of my wet brushes also. It's kind of like painting a ball jointed doll a little bit, although the material is different. I think the resin does not accept the color as well as this plastic does. In my limited opinion, I think it doesn't, but this accepts the color really well, especially with that matte medium put down. So I'm just putting a little bit more pink on her cheeks, across her nose. Just don't want to put too much because I still feel like she's sort of childlike. That's how I vision her, even with the big boobs. So that's kind of the finished face. I did put several coats of Mr. Super Clear, sprayed it outside with my gas mask on. And now you're going to get to see why I hate putting eyelashes on any doll. So I'm going to speed this up a little bit because it's just too torturous to watch in slow motion. But basically what I'm doing, I'm taking the eyelash and I had to cut it because these were kind that were angled where they're longer at one corner than the other. So I'm cutting them so they're the same length all the way across, and then measuring it to see, just how much I need. And then you can kind of use your scissor tip to cut up into it to make it look more feathered. Because these were feathered before I cut the ends off. So now I'm just measuring to see how much I need for each eye. And then I'm going to cut 2 pieces off of this one eyelash. I'm using my barber scissors there, although they've kind of gotten dull lately. Probably like my sewing scissors, I use them to cut other things that I shouldn't. So one really important part of this is to try to bend them to match the corner of the eye. So there I'm trying to feather them a little bit more, just cutting straight up into the lash hair. And that helps feather them a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue. I want to put these lashes like right up under the eyelid. And I don't want them to stick back too much because I'm going to try to put those eyes in, and if they're sticking back into the head, it's not going to allow the eye to be pushed up flush with the eye socket. So this is tedious, and so my game plan is I'm going to put this glue there, and then I want to let it dry just a little bit, and I'm also going to put glue on the top side of the lashes. So, what I hoped would happen was that I let it dry just enough that when I put the lash with the glue against the glue on the lid, it would just like adhere to each other, it'd stick. And since it's not completely, as wet as it is in the beginning, that would hold it. That's a good theory, right? Well, you're about to see that theory fail. So it's kind of been sitting for a little bit, not much, but I don't have that much on them. So I'm speeding this up just to show you how long it took to get this stupid eyelash. It kept sticking to everything, and then I'd put more glue in, put more glue on the lash. And one time I finally got it in, but it was sticking back too far, and then when I tried to push it out, it fell off. There was one point at which I was like, well, maybe I will just put them back behind it. That would have been really easy to do. Just put it back behind it like the ones were originally. That would have been very easy to do, but it would have had the lashes pointing down, and I really didn't want that. I wanted the lashes to be pointed out and up so that it looked more like, a real eye. Okay, that's my goal. All right, so I think that one I finally got that pretty well done. And so then I started trying to put the other one on. So same theory. And I thought, oh, well, I've done one now, so probably this one will be a whole lot easier. Yeah, that's so funny. That is so funny. But same theory. I really don't have another theory. I didn't think anything else would be any easier. So just putting a little glue on the top of the lash, and then here we go. I'm speeding this up again. This was so annoying, I have to say. And my other technique, which is to glue like one side, that only works if you're gluing on top of an eyelid. It doesn't really work for putting it underneath like this. You really just have to just keep doing it till you get it where you want it, and that it'll dry enough that it'll stay in there. So then I'm looking in the back, to see how far it's pushed in, and it's pushed in too far. And whoop, now I pushed the whole eyelash out. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I want you all to try this. You guys have got to try this. It's just so much fun. It's just hilarious. Usually when I push things with the metal of that pointy thing, it doesn't stick to it, but it was really sticking to it in this case. See, that one has already dried pretty well, so that's how they look, and that's what I wanted. I wanted them to look like they were kind of curling up instead of pointing straight down. So now we're ready to put the eyeballs in. And I'm just using the little clay that you use, same thing you used with ball jointed dolls, and I made a thin roll of it, and then I'm just molding that around the outside of the eye of the white part. And then we're going to try to stick it in to the eyeball socket. And hopefully this will work. I think it will. I think it'll work. That's my dog's barking. All right, so I got one eye in. That wasn't too bad. Nothing like putting eyelashes in, let me tell you. All right, so we're going to do the other eye. Same technique. Put the clay or whatever that is called around the eye and stick it into the eyeball. And once again, I apologize. I got it outside of the frame. But basically, I'm just trying to get it in there, get it pointed in the same direction as the other eye, and make sure that I have the clay pressed down really well to hold it. Because once we have the doll head back on and the hair on, it's not going to be easy to get to. So there's how it looks from the back after I put the eyes in with the clay. And now we're ready to put the body back on. You just put the head into the little or the neck into the slot in the head. Very simple. Put the back head on, put that little screw in there, and screw it in. Much easier to screw it back in than it was taking it off. Trust me. So there I'm got the body on and I'm screwing it back in. So that worked out well. So let me give you a look at the doll with the head on. So that's where we are. I pull back just a little bit so I'm not in such a small frame. It'll be easier for me to stay in frame. So now we're going to look at putting some type of hair on her. And just so happened this morning that I was making this, that I went to a thrift store and I found this packet of hair, and it said, it was $1, and I didn't really even know what it looked like inside. So I thought, well, this might be interesting, and it's $1. We'll give it a try. I could do, like alpaca fiber, but I thought I'd try this instead. I like the color, and it goes with the eyes. So I'm just going to cut off this outer rim because it's going to be a little bit too big for her head like this. I'm going to try to make a little wig cap like the one she had on using the material on the back of this hair. So I have to get it down to where the size is similar to the one that she had before. So I'm just going around in a circle and cutting off that mesh till I get to that end. And then what I want to do is take some needle and thread and tie that end over into the main body of the circle. So like that. And then it'll look like a little round hat. All right, so I get some thread, and the first thing I did was just make sure that I had the thread securely attached to that weave there, that where it's the hair sewed to it. I had to cut off a little bit of it because it was part of it had no hair on it, so I just got rid of that part. So I'm just running the needle through and through this weave to make sure that it's secure. I have a knot at the end of the thread, but I wanted to make sure, because sometimes it'll pull through that sewn weave material. And once I did that 3 or 4 times, then I can go over and sew it to the mesh part to bring that into a full circle. Just pull that over and then sew it into the mesh. So what I'm going to do with this, I'll show you after I finish this, but I'll just go ahead and tell you. I'm going to run a loose seam, not a seam, well, I guess it kind of is, a thread around in and out of that outer edge of that circle, and then pull it, and that'll gather it and bring the edges in, so it's kind of like a cap. So that's my theory. But first I wanted to secure this in, and I just sewed it several times and then tied some knots in it to make sure that it was secure. And then while I, am there with the thread started, I'm going to go ahead and make the cap. But I want to measure first just to see that looks like the outside of that is going to pull in and fit the head properly. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty good fit. So I'm going to just go around the outer edge here, going in and out loosely, sort of big stitches in and out of that mesh. And then when I get all the way back around to where I started, then I can pull it and it should create a cap. All right, so I'm just going to speed that up a little bit. So this video has ended up being fairly long because I tried to do the whole doll in one session, but it's such a small doll that I really didn't want to try to turn it into like 2 or 3 different videos. And when we get to the end of this, I have an announcement about projects coming up. I've got something rather ambitious that I'm going to work on, and I'll give you a hint about that at the end of the video. All right, so now I've got that done. I've pulled it a little bit, and now I want to see if I need to pull it a little bit more, and I think I do. So I just pull on that, and it tightens that outer edge up and makes that sort of bowl shape dome that we can glue down to her head. I tried it one more time just to make sure I had it tight enough. And then I'm going to tie the end of this with a knot so that the gathering won't come out, and then we can glue it down. Now the problem with this synthetic hair is, especially on smaller dolls, it doesn't lay flat very well. And that's one concern that I have because I do want to have her have some bangs, but I'm going to work with that, and I'll show you when we get to that point how I deal with that sort of issue. But that's why I really don't like synthetic hair for dolls. It's really hard to manipulate on the smaller dolls into a style that you like, whereas if you use alpaca fiber, it's so much softer that it lays down flat and you can, curl it and style it pretty well on these smaller dolls. It's not so bad. The synthetic's not so bad for the bigger dolls, but the smaller ones is just so thick, and uh, it's hard to get it out of the shape that it's in whenever you buy it, because it's been molded into that shape. All right, so we got our little cap, and trying it one more time just to make sure we got it sized right. And it seems like it's going to work pretty well. It's going to glue down pretty much where the other one was. So I'm going to use E6000 for this because it dries pretty fast and it's nice and thick, so I don't think it will soak through to the hair too bad. That's the other thing you got to worry about. If you put a glue that's more liquid, it can, as you're pressing it down, it's going to press into the hair, and then you're going to have hard globs of hair glued together. And I just want this to attach to the cap part, not so much go through to the hair. So I'm going to put this down kind of more at the edges, but I did put a little bit at the top. Now I will tell you, I made a mistake. Well, if I did this again, what I would do is turn the cap inside out and then press the crown part down to the crown of the head and then fold the edges down over the head. But I didn't. I tried to put it on like a wig. So I got the back of the hair caught up under the glue, and I ended up having to cut that out. So, yeah, this doll's not going to be going to the Etsy shop because it's more of an experiment. It's the first one I've ever done, and I have to say I do like the little face, though. I think the face turned out kind of cute. So I like that part. So here we go. I'm trying to put this on like a wig and just press it down. And I think that was a mistake. No, wait, as we say here, that was an adventure. And was able to recover from the adventure, but didn't really end up the way I had wanted it to be in the back because I had to cut out some of the hair that got glue on it. So anyway, I'm just making sure I have it pressed down right at that hairline in the front where the other one was, and I got rid of some of the excess glue. And then I'm just pressing it down around the edges till I feel like it's, holding and it's starting to dry. And then I let it sit for a while so that it was completely dry. So this is after that. And so we've got a nice little head of hair here. But I'm going to cut some of it off. First of all, I'm going to cut some bangs around her face. And then I'm also going to cut some of the length off. So bear with me. I'm just going to start doing some cutting. As usual, I'm going to cut the bangs way longer than I know they need to be, but that's just because you can cut it long and cut it more, but once you cut it short, you can't do anything with it except maybe do a new head of hair. So that's where I had to cut out the back there where it got glue on the hair. So now I'm just sort of eyeballing it to see, and I continue to cut the hair a little bit shorter each time, and I'm pressing down on it at the top to make sure that the hair is pressed down, because once I show you this technique I have for making the hair go flat, you'll see why I need it I need it to be exactly where it's going to be. So I want to see her eyes and a little bit of her eyebrows if possible. And there's that one piece sticking up that is really, really messing up my ability to measure how long it needs to be. So that's starting to look pretty good. And that's how I suggest you do it. Just cut a little at a time. If you cut too much, then you can't go back. But just cut a little at a time, see how it looks, then cut a little bit more. So I'm pressing it down a little bit more, a little bit more. Then I had one of the eyelash edges come loose, of course. Had to glue that back down. So had a few adventures with this doll. But I really like how her little face turned out. I think that actually looks cute, and I like it. I think because of the eyes, the way the eyes look. And I think that the lashes look better than the lashes that came original with the doll. But that hair, I don't know what it is with their hair. That's the same way the Petite Blythe was when I first got her. She had horribly stiff hair. And I took her hair off and replaced it. It was really stiff. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold this down, press this down where I want it to be, and I'm going to spray it with some hairspray. Doesn't have to be this kind, just some kind of hairspray that will hold good. Spray a pretty good amount, press it down. And then I'm going to just take a folded piece of aluminum foil. This is doubled aluminum foil, so it's nice and stiff. And then I'm just going to mold it around her head. Sorry, I had to put her up close to me to do that. Not going to put it around her on top of her face, but I'm just pressing that down. And then I let that stay like that actually overnight. So I would make sure that it was nice and dry, and also that having the aluminum foil on top of it helps keep it in the flattened shape. So this is the next day. I'm taking that off, and you can see that those bangs are plastered down. But you can just now comb it and pull it apart, pull the stiffness apart, and then it looks like hair again, and it acts like hair again. So just take your comb and comb it, but it lays much flatter. Probably would have helped too if I had put some heat on top of the aluminum foil. I didn't do that, but that's another way you can do that. So a little bit more trimming that I wanted to do. I want to extend the bangs around on the sides a little bit more. I think they're too close to her face. The sides of the hair is too close to the face. So I'm cutting off some of the sides and making sure that the bangs are all even, and also cutting off some of the bottom of the hair in the back. I don't want it to be that long. And the way I'm going to style this doll is she's going to have a hat on, so that's going to help hold the hair down too. But I like the color of the hair. I think that turned out pretty cute, especially with the color of the eyes. So now that we've got the hair pretty much where we want it, I'm just going to trim up some of the long pieces that I missed around the edges, and the few that are just sticking out and being annoying. And now we're going to put her outfit on. And like I said, this is an outfit that I have for my Petite Blythes, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to fit as long as it's going to go across the big chest that she has there, and I'll be able to button it in the back. Other than that, I think the bodies look very similar. And it did. There's a little button in the back, and that worked pretty well. This was made by, you remember I did a video on Diva du Jour on Etsy, the shop. This is one of her outfits. Remember I told you she has elves that help her make this tiny stuff? Anyway, can you believe these tights? How tiny they are? I don't know how she does it. But anyway, so we're going to put these little tights on her. And she even has little tiny boots that are made out of felt that are very cute. So we're going to put those on top of the tights. These are very adorable. And the last piece, well, not the last piece, the next to last piece is a little itty bitty sweater. Yeah, can you believe that? With buttons and buttonholes. Unbelievable. I just don't know how she does that. But anyway, so we're going to have the sweater and the little dress, the tights, and the boots. And then we have a knitted hat that's going to go and complete the outfit. All right, so we've got the hair. So we're just going to put the little beanie cap on her. And she's wearing this kind of in a grunge look, you know. And I think at this point, I felt like it pushed the hair down enough that it was just sort of pushing down her eyelashes. So I made the decision to go ahead and cut some more of the bangs off so that the hair, when it gets pushed down by the hat, is not too long. And I mean, she doesn't have to wear the hat. I think she looks cute without it. But I think the hat really makes the outfit, so. And I like that it matches the dress. It's got that cream color that the dress has in it. All right. So you could leave it like that, or I ended up actually pulling it down to where it covered up her bangs. Either way, however you want to style it. I just thought it kind of looked like kind of like the grunge, you know how people wear the big huge toboggans and they're sort of saggy in the back. That's kind of how I envisioned it. Although she's got on kind of a traditional outfit. But there's our girl. She's all finished. And I'll show you some still pictures. Here's one of the full outfit standing facing us, and then there's one from the side. Get that little flip in the hair. If you wanted to get rid of that, you could put some heat to it and get it to lie flat. And I wanted to show you side by side with the Petite Blythe, just to show you she's just a little tiny bit bigger. Not much, but just a tiny bit. Maybe because the Blythe they have their heads sort of angled down and the neck is not as long. And then here's a before and after picture so you can see the difference from where we started. And I think she turned out really cute. So now I'm going to give you a little hint about my challenging project that's coming up. Do you guys know who that is? Well, I'm going to try to make all three of them, and that's going to be a real challenge because they have some characteristics that are going to be difficult to do with dolls that are already molded. But anyway, that's coming, so that'll be exciting, and that's going to take a while, so we'll be busy with that. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Thanks, and bye.